Ambassador Thelverin stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Concord's diplomatic vessel Celestial Harmony, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he stared at the blue-green planet below. Earth, home to humans, the galaxy's newest spacefaring civilization. At least, that's what everyone believed. "Are you certain about this information, Analyst Zuri?" he asked, his scaled fingers tightening around the datapad. The Valerian analyst beside him nodded, her crystalline skin catching the light of Earth's sun. "The data is irrefutable, Ambassador. Our deep space monitoring stations detected the anomaly 3 cycles ago. The energy signature matches nothing in our database, yet it originated from Earth's lunar installation." Thelveren's secondary heart fluttered nervously. According to all official records, humans had only established a basic habitat on their moon, certainly nothing capable of generating an energy signature that could be detected across 17 light-years. "This contradicts everything in the Concorde's records," he murmured. "Humans achieved faster than light travel merely 80 years ago. They're barely past their industrial phase by galactic standards." "Perhaps that's what they wanted us to think," Zuri replied. The diplomatic mission had been straightforward. Welcome Earth into the Galactic Concorde, the alliance of 27 spacefaring civilizations that maintained peace across this arm of the galaxy. Humans were seen as promising but primitive newcomers, their admission more of a courtesy than a necessity. "Prepare the shuttle," Thelverin decided. "No accusations, no confrontations. We observe and gather information." 2 hours later, the diplomatic shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, heading toward the Global Assembly headquarters in what humans called New Geneva. The massive structure represented humanity's unified government, established only 50 years ago according to official records. Director Elena Reyes greeted them in the Assembly's Grand Hall, her dark hair streaked with gray, her bearing dignified but unassuming. "Ambassador Thelverin, we're honored by your visit," she said, bowing slightly. "Though I admit, we weren't expecting the Concorde delegation for another week." Thelverin's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of suspicion among his kind. "Circumstances change, Director Reyes. We detected something curious." If the director was concerned, she didn't show it. "Curious. I hope nothing troubling." "That depends on your perspective," Thelverin replied carefully. "We detected an energy surge from your lunar base, one that shouldn't be possible with your current level of technology." The smallest of smiles touched Reyes' lips. "I see. And this concerns the Concorde. It raises questions about the accuracy of the information Earth has provided." Reyes regarded him silently for a moment, then nodded to an aide. "I believe this conversation requires a more appropriate setting. Please, follow me." She led them through a series of corridors, each requiring progressively more complex security scans. The deeper they went, the more Thelverin noticed subtle differences in the technology around them. What had appeared to be simple light fixtures now revealed themselves as something far more sophisticated. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with hidden energy. "Director," Zuri spoke up, her instruments silently scanning. "These materials aren't registered in any Concorde database." "No," Reyes agreed. "They wouldn't be." They entered a circular chamber where a dozen humans in uniform stood around a holographic display, showing the galaxy in exquisite detail, far more detail than should have been possible for a species that had only begun interstellar exploration in the last century. "Ambassador," Reyes said, her tone shifted from diplomatic to authoritative. "What I'm about to share with you violates approximately 300 protocols, but recent events have accelerated our timeline." She gestured, and a holographic display zoomed in on a region of space far beyond the Concorde's territory. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring network detected a signature we haven't seen in over 2,000 years. Thelverin's primary heart nearly stopped. 2,000. But humans have only been in space for a little over a century. Reyes finished for him. "Yes, that's the official record. The reality is somewhat different." With another gesture, the display changed. showing Earth but with orbital structures and defense systems that didn't exist in any Concorde record. Humanity has been spacefaring for approximately 7,000 years. Ambassador, we achieved faster than light travel roughly 5,000 years ago. The revelation hit Thelverin like a physical blow. The Arthavi, his own species, were considered ancient among the Concorde civilizations, with 3,000 years of space travel. The oldest known spacefaring race, the Nebulon Collective, had only 4,000 years of documented interstellar history. Impossible, he whispered. The Concorde's stellar mapping divisions would have detected only what we allowed them to detect, said a new voice. A tall human male with artificial cybernetic enhancements visible along his temples stepped forward. Admiral James Chen, Earth Defense Command. For millennia, we've maintained a policy of technological obscuration. But why? Zuri asked, her analytical mind already racing to recalculate everything she thought she knew about humans. Reyes and Chen exchanged glances before Reyes answered. Because the last time an advanced civilization revealed itself too quickly, it triggered a war that nearly destroyed this galaxy. We've been watching, waiting, and preparing, building our strength in secret. The energy signature you detected, Admiral Chen continued, was from our phase displacement array. It's designed to detect transdimensional incursions. Thelverin struggled to process this information. Transdimensional. This technology shouldn't exist. It's theoretical at best. For the Concorde, perhaps, Rai said. For us, it's been operational for centuries. We've maintained the appearance of a young, developing species for a reason, Ambassador, Chen explained. It allowed us to observe the Concorde, to understand its strengths and weaknesses, to determine if you were ready. Ready for what? Thelverin demanded. Reyes' expression grew grave. For the return of the Void Harvesters, the enemy that nearly destroyed all sentient life 7,000 years ago, before we drove them back into the spaces between dimensions. The holographic display shifted again, showing a massive dark shape emerging from what appeared to be a tear in the fabric of space. This is what our array detected 3 days ago, Chen said. The first Harvester scout ship in 2 millennia. They're coming back, Ambassador. And this time, the Concorde will need to stand with humanity if any of us are to survive. Thelverin stared at the image, his mind reeling. Everything he thought he knew about humans, about Earth's place in the galactic order, had just been completely upended. You've been lying to the entire galaxy, he finally managed. We've been protecting it, Rice corrected. And now we need your help to continue doing so. As Thelverin looked around the room at the humans, these supposedly primitive newcomers who had just revealed themselves to be perhaps the most advanced species in known space, he realized that the galaxy's understanding of its own history was about to change forever. Show me everything, he said. The secure facility beneath New Geneva extended far deeper than Thelverin had initially suspected. As the elevator descended, he felt the subtle shift in gravitational forces, technology that even the most advanced Concorde worlds struggled to perfect. This installation extends 8 kilometers below the surface, Admiral Chen explained. Similar complexes exist beneath each continent. How did you hide all this? Zuri asked, her analytical mind still processing. Our planetary surveys were allowed to see exactly what we wanted them to see, Rise interjected. Selective quantum camouflage. To your sensors, these facilities simply appear as natural geological formations. The elevator stopped, opening into a vast chamber filled with technology unlike anything Thelverin had ever witnessed. Enormous crystalline structures pulsed with blue-white energy. Humans moved efficiently among workstations, many with visible cybernetic enhancements far more advanced than the primitive augmentations humans publicly acknowledged possessing. Welcome to Nexus Alpha, Ray said, one of humanity's primary defensive coordination centers. A massive holographic display dominated the center of the chamber, showing not just the Milky Way, but neighboring galaxies as well, with thousands of blinking markers indicating what appeared to be monitoring stations. "Your surveillance network extends beyond our galaxy?" Thelverin asked, incredulous. Admiral Chen nodded. "For the past 3,000 years. After the first incursion, we realized monitoring just our galaxy wouldn't provide sufficient warning time." Thelverin's diplomatic training was failing him. Nothing in his centuries of experience had prepared him for this revelation. "You speak of this first incursion, yet no Concord records mention such an event." Rise gestured to a conference room adjacent to the main chamber. Inside, an elderly human woman awaited them, her eyes immediately striking Thelverin as impossibly old despite her relatively youthful appearance. "This is Dr. Eleanor Wright, our chief historian," Rise introduced. "She'll explain what happened and why you have no record of it." Dr. Wright activated a holographic display on the conference table. 7,000 years ago, humanity was just beginning to explore beyond our solar system. We were young, eager, and unfortunately, very loud. The display showed early human vessels, crude by current standards but recognizable as faster-than-light capable ships. Our early experiments with quantum communications created ripples across dimensional boundaries, ripples that attracted attention we weren't prepared for. The hologram shifted to show massive dark structures emerging from tears in space, shapes that defied conventional geometry, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. We called them void harvesters. They exist primarily in the spaces between dimensions, feeding on energy, particularly the energy of sentient consciousness. To them, our galaxy represented an unprecedented feast. Thelverin felt his scales tighten against his body, an instinctive fear response. "These are the entities you claim to have fought." "Not just fought," Chen said grimly. "Nearly died exterminating." The hologram changed to show devastating battles across star systems Thelverin recognized, including the home systems of several current Concord species, ancient cities being destroyed, entire planets left lifeless. "The war lasted nearly 500 years, Dr. Wright continued. Dozens of civilizations were wiped out. Others were reduced to pre-industrial states. By the end, humanity stood virtually alone." "That's impossible," Zuri interrupted. "The developmental history of every Concord species is well documented. There are no gaps indicating such a catastrophic event." Dr. Wright smiled sadly. "There are no gaps because we made sure of it. When the last of the harvesters were driven back, we faced a choice. Leave the survivors to rebuild with the traumatic memory of what had happened, or give them a clean slate," Rice finished quietly. The implications stunned Thelverin. "You're saying humans altered the memories, the entire historical record, of every surviving species?" Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "We did what was necessary, using a combination of temporal manipulation and planetary-scale psychic reordering. We removed all knowledge of the harvesters from the collective consciousness of surviving species. We then helped rebuild civilizations," Dr. Wright added, "guided their development from the shadows, ensured they would evolve along paths that would eventually lead to cooperation rather than conflict. The Galactic Concord didn't form naturally," Rice said. "We engineered its creation, subtly guided its development over millennia." Thelverin felt as though the floor beneath him had disappeared. The Concord, the greatest achievement of interspecies cooperation in known history, had been a human creation all along. "Why reveal yourselves as a young species at all?" Zuri asked. "Why not remain completely hidden?" "Because isolation breeds stagnation," Dr. Wright explained. "We needed to rejoin galactic society, even if under false pretenses. It allowed us to maintain direct observation and influence. And more importantly," Chen added, "it allowed us to establish formal diplomatic channels that could be leveraged quickly when necessary." "Like now," Thelverin realized. "Exactly," Rice confirmed. "The harvester we detected is just a scout, but where one comes, others will follow. We've spent thousands of years preparing, but even with all our advancement, We can't face them alone. Not again. Dr. Wright manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the Harvester scout ship. Our calculations suggest we have approximately 6 months before the main Harvester force arrives. This time, we need the Concorde fighting alongside us, with full knowledge of what they're facing. You expect me to return to the Concorde Council with this information? Thelvarin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Tell them that humans have manipulated our entire civilizational development, that our memories and histories are fabrications. No, Reyes said firmly. We expect you to tell them that humanity has been fighting a war in secret for millennia, a war that protected the galaxy without requiring other species to bear that burden. And now, we need allies. Admiral Chen leaned forward. We've prepared information packages that explain everything in a way that won't destabilize Concorde societies. The full truth would be counterproductive. More manipulation, Thelvarin noted bitterly. Pragmatism, Rice countered. The Harvesters nearly extinguished all life in this galaxy once before. We cannot allow idealism to interfere with survival. Zuri, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. Ambassador, I've been analyzing the energy patterns from these historical records. They match anomalous readings detected in several unexplained astronomical events throughout Concorde history. She looked up, her crystalline features reflecting the hologram's light. I believe they're telling the truth. Thelvarin stared at the images of destruction, of entire worlds left barren, then at the humans before him. A species he had believed to be newcomers, now revealed as ancient guardians. Show me your defenses, he finally said. Show me how you plan to fight these Harvesters. Then perhaps I can convince the Concorde to stand with humanity. Reyes nodded, relief evident in her expression. Thank you, Ambassador. Perhaps there's hope for all of us yet. As they left the conference room, returning to the main chamber, Thelvarin couldn't help but wonder what other secrets humans had been keeping, and whether the galaxy would ever truly know the full extent of humanity's influence on their collective history. 6 weeks after Thelvarin's return to the Concorde Council, the Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from all 27 member civilizations had gathered for what many were calling the most important session in Concorde history. Thelvarin stood at the central podium, flanked by Director Reyes and Admiral Chen. The evidence they had presented, carefully curated to reveal humanity's advanced status without disclosing the full extent of their historical manipulation, had shocked the Council into stunned silence. The data is conclusive. First Speaker Lomar of the Nebulon Collective announced, his voice resonating through the hall. These void harvesters pose an existential threat to all life in our galaxy, and humanity has been fighting them alone. Asked Councillor Xith, her serpentine body coiled tightly, a sign of distress among her kind, for thousands of years. Yes, Reyes replied simply. We believed it was our responsibility. We discovered them. We awakened them. Murmurs spread through the assembly. For most representatives, the revelation that humans were not newcomers, but rather one of the most ancient spacefaring civilizations, had been difficult enough to accept. The existence of extradimensional predators was almost too much. How can we be certain these creatures even exist? Demanded Representative Krell of the Juriani hegemony, his armored exoskeleton clicking as he gesticulated. This could be an elaborate deception to force the Concorde to grant humans greater influence. In response, Admiral Chen activated a holographic projector. The image that appeared showed a massive tear in space near the outer rim of the galaxy. From within the tear, something was emerging, a structure of impossible geometry, its surface seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. This was recorded by our Deep Space Monitoring Station in Sector 42, approximately 12 hours ago, Chen said. The station was destroyed 3 minutes after transmission. Silence fell over the assembly. This is not the scout ship we detected 6 weeks ago, Reyes added. This is something much larger. Our estimates suggest it's a vanguard for the main Harvester force. First speaker Lomar's bioluminescent skin pulsed rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. How long do we have? Based on its current trajectory and speed, 4 months until it reaches populated systems, Chen replied. Less if it accelerates. Thelverin stepped forward. In the weeks since his visit to Earth, he had struggled with what he had learned. The knowledge that his people's history, indeed, the history of all Concord species, had been shaped by human intervention had shaken him to his core. And yet, facing the reality of the harvesters, he found himself grateful for humanity's millennia of vigilance. Honored representatives, he began, I have seen Earth's defenses firsthand. Their technology is beyond anything we have imagined, but even they cannot face this threat alone. He turned to face the assembly directly. The choice before us is clear: stand together or perish separately. After 3 days of intense debate, the Concord Earth Alliance was formalized. Humanity revealed military technology they had kept hidden for centuries. Dimensional dampeners to prevent harvester incursions, phase cannons capable of targeting entities existing partially outside normal space, and shield systems that could withstand the harvester's energy-draining attacks. 2 months later, the shipyards orbiting Jupiter, revealed to be far more extensive than officially acknowledged, were producing vessels at an astonishing rate. Concord engineers worked alongside human technicians, integrating their technologies in ways neither had previously considered. Aboard the newly commissioned Alliance flagship Defiance, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge with Thelverin, now serving as the Concord's official liaison. The fleet will be ready within the week, Chen reported. 300 capital ships, 2,000 support vessels. Thelverin nodded, watching through the viewport as vessels from a dozen different species maneuvered in formation. Will it be enough? Honestly, I don't know, Chen admitted. The last time we faced the harvesters, we had fewer ships but fewer worlds to protect. The galaxy is more populated now. If we fail, we won't, Chen interrupted. Not this time. Not with the combined strength of humanity and the Concorde. On the command deck below them, human officers worked alongside representatives from every Concorde species. What had seemed impossible mere months ago, a unified response to an unprecedented threat, was now reality. Director Reyes joined them, her expression grim. The Harvester Vanguard has accelerated. It will reach the Polarian system in 7 days. Sooner than expected, Thelverin noted. But not sooner than we can respond, Chen stated firmly. The first defense fleet is already in position. As preparations continued, Thelverin found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. He had gone from believing humans were newcomers to the galactic community to learning they were perhaps its oldest guardians, a species that had sacrificed its place among the stars to protect others from a horror they never even knew existed. The true test came 3 weeks later in the Polarian system. The Harvester Vanguard, a construct nearly the size of Earth's moon, emerged from its dimensional tear and immediately began draining energy from the system's sun. The Allied fleet engaged, their weapon systems specially calibrated based on humanity's historical data. Phase cannons tore through the Harvester's outer shell, while dimensional dampeners prevented it from retreating back into the void between realities. On the Defiance's bridge, Admiral Chen coordinated the attack with cold precision, while Director Reyes maintained communication with Concorde vessels, ensuring the complex battle strategy was executed flawlessly. When the Vanguard finally collapsed in on itself, creating a brief but spectacular implosion that rippled across dimensional boundaries, a cheer erupted throughout the fleet. The first battle had been won. But it was only the beginning. Over the next 6 months, more harvesters emerged. Each battle was harder than the last as the creatures adapted to the Alliance's tactics. Losses mounted on both sides. Then came the decisive moment, the detection of what humans termed a Nexus Harvester, the controlling intelligence behind the incursion. It emerged near the galactic core, a structure so vast it distorted space-time around it. The Allied fleet gathered for one final desperate assault. Ships from every Concorde world, alongside Earth's most advanced vessels, formed battle groups that attacked in coordinated waves. Casualties were immense. Entire battle groups were lost in seconds as the Nexus Harvester unleashed weapons that defied physical laws. In the chaos, the Defiance managed to approach the Harvester's central mass. Admiral Chen, Director Reyes, and Thelveren knew this might be their only chance. "The resonance torpedo is armed," Reyes reported, her voice steady despite the ship shuddering under repeated attacks. "If we can deliver it to the dimensional anchor point." "We'll need to get closer," Chen said grimly, knowing what that meant. Thelveren looked between them. In the months they had fought together, he had come to understand humans better than he ever thought possible. Their determination, their willingness to sacrifice, their unflinching courage in the face of seemingly impossible odds. "The celestial harmony can provide cover," he said, referring to his original diplomatic vessel, now retrofitted for combat, long enough for the Defiance to deliver the payload. Chen nodded, gratitude in his eyes. "Signal the fleet, all ships covering fire for the Defiance." What followed would later be remembered as the final approach. Over 200 Allied vessels sacrificed themselves, drawing the Nexus Harvester's attacks to create a pathway for the Defiance. The flagship, engines burning beyond safety limits, closed the distance. When they reached the optimal position, Reyes activated the resonance torpedo, a weapon that used the Harvester's own transdimensional nature against them, creating a cascading collapse that would sever their connection to normal space. "We won't survive the detonation at this range," Chen noted calmly. "I know," Reyes replied. Thelveren looked at his human companions, members of a species he had once considered primitive, now revealed as the galaxy's most ancient protectors. "It has been an honor," he said simply. The torpedo launched, striking the Nexus Harvester's dimensional anchor. The resulting reaction tore open reality itself for a brief, terrible moment before collapsing inward, dragging the Harvester back into the void between dimensions and sealing the breach behind it. The Defiance, caught in the reaction's edge, was heavily damaged but miraculously not destroyed. As emergency systems struggled to maintain life support, Thelveren looked out at the starfield where the Nexus Harvester had been. "Is it over?" he asked. Admiral Chen checked the readings from the ship's sensors. "The dimensional breach is sealed. All Harvester signatures are gone." He looked up, allowing himself a small smile. "Yes, Ambassador. I believe it is over." 3 months later, the reconstructed Concord Council chamber on Earth hosted representatives from all surviving Alliance worlds. Director Reyes addressed the assembly, her arm still in a sling from injuries sustained during the final battle. "The threat has passed, but our vigilance must remain eternal," she said. "Humanity kept watch alone for thousands of years. That burden should never again fall to a single species." The proposal before the Council was unprecedented. A united defense force, combining the technologies and strengths of all member civilizations, dedicated to monitoring dimensional boundaries and protecting against future incursions. "We stood together against the darkness," Thelveren added, now speaking as the newly appointed Supreme Counselor of the reformed Galactic Alliance. "And together, we will ensure it never returns." As the vote was cast, unanimously in favor, Admiral Chen gazed out at the assembled representatives. For millennia, humanity had hidden its true nature, carrying the burden no species should bear alone. Now, at last, that burden was shared. Outside the council chamber, Earth's night sky glittered with the lights of thousands of vessels from across the galaxy, no longer strangers or potential threats, but allies, partners, friends. The galaxy had seen humans as newcomers, as beginners just taking their first steps into the cosmic community. The truth had shaken the very foundations of that community. But from that shaking had come something stronger than anyone could have imagined. And as dawn broke over New Geneva, it heralded not just a new day, but a new era for all sentient life in the galaxy.